I'm Jennifer Gassman. I'm the chair of the Kansas Alliance for Drug Endangered Children, and I have been a part of the Shawnee County Drug Endangered Children since it started in 2004, 20 years ago. We are the longest continuously going alliance in the state of Kansas. And Mike is our current chair, so I will let him speak next.
Thanks, Jennifer. Welcome, everyone. My name is Mike Parsons. I am the chair of the Shawnee County Kansas Alliance, and then also I sit on the board of the state Kansas Alliance for the state of Kansas. And we just want to take a second to thank you guys all. We did this, we were just talking with Eric and Carrie and Trish. I think we tried this back during COVID in 2020. And we wanted to bring even more recognition to Drug Endangered Children Awareness Day. So we did a brown bag series back in 2020, and we had such a good turnout, we thought we would try it again. And so far it's been fabulous. I think we had close to 130 last week, and then looks like we're up over 100 or about 110 now. I saw several different states pop up, so that's great also. And we're very fortunate to have Trish with us today. So I'll turn it back over to Eric and we'll get started.
Perfect. So from National DEC, you've got myself. My name is Eric Nation. I'm the Director of Training and Development with National DEC, and also helping us today is Carrie. Carrie, you want to introduce yourself briefly before we introduce the great Trish Luna?
I am Carrie Jensen. I am our Alliance Support Director and help you guys in any ways that you need. So shoot me emails if you need some documents, if you need some tools, if you need to find something on our website, just let me know and I can help support you that way.
All right. We will be monitoring the chat. So if you have any questions, throw things into the chat box. But what you all are here for today is the great Trish Luna. I will let Trish introduce herself a little bit more, but National DEC is very honored to present to you our good friend and actually partner, Trish Luna. Trish is the author of Lambi Talks About Addiction. So with that being said, Trish, I am going to turn it over to you and let you educate.
Okay. Hey, everybody. Thanks so much for being here today. I so much prefer in-person meetings, but we all learned during COVID that we can have a great outreach by doing this way. We get to bring in a lot more people than if we all tried to get somewhere today, this afternoon. But by way of introduction of myself, I think just going through the presentation, you'll get to maybe learn a lot more about me than you even wanted to know, because I share this as a story of my family's history. So you'll get to know me a little bit better through the telling of the tale, and why Lambi Learns About Addiction, a book about prevention, is something that comes straight from my heart and a personal need within my family. So I'm so happy to have you all here. If you are ready to have me start, should I just go right into, okay. And we're gonna see, Carrie, Eric, and I were playing with this. So when you see my screen, I can see the little tabs, but do you just see the book? Okay, because I see all the share screen and the chat, but you don't see that. Okay, good. We're good to go. So this is about Lambi. So meet Lambi. And the thing about substance use disorder, all of us know who work in this field, we know that the obvious people that it impacts are the people that are suffering from addiction themselves, but it impacts all members of the family, most specifically the children, and they are often the most overlooked. I love one of the stories that Eric shared with me when we first met many years ago about his work in law enforcement, when the light bulb finally went off in his head, that as he was stepping over the children to get to the people he had to arrest, it was like, wait a minute, what am I happening? What's happening here? This is the collateral damage that we just overlook. We step over and get to what we think is the mission. So my intention is to create this safe space to talk about this disease, because one of the problems is, because there is so much stigma and shame attached to substance use disorder not being recognized as a disease, just like cancer or lung disease or so many other things that we reach out in compassion, about. With substance use disorder, it is a moral failure. That's how we see this. So both of my parents are adult children of alcoholics. And it's so funny, every time I look at this picture, I just see like, this is just kind of a mini train wreck going on here, guys. And everybody's smiling, but there was a lot behind the scenes that was left unaddressed. So we repeat what we don't repair. And when we grow up in dysfunctional environments, things that are perhaps not the healthiest are what resonate with us because that's just how we're wired. So my internal bells were saying when I met my first husband, man, this is it, game on. I met my man. So when Joe and I married, he was not even drinking alcohol. There was no drugs there. We just had presumably a very normal life. Joe was a fireman. He was a police officer. We had 2 beautiful children. We just looked like we had it all. And we did. But things are not always as they appear. And as you'll hear later in the story of Lambi, that is the very first line of the book is Lambi is a bunny. Isn't that strange? And isn't that funny? You'd think I'd be a lamb, but I have long ears. You'll see that everything is not as it appears. So don't go by appearances. Don't judge things by what you think they are. In this picture, this was the day that we moved from Florida to Tennessee, and you would have no idea what was going on behind the scenes of this scene right here. I mean, it kind of breaks my heart when I look at it because I was a wreck. I probably hadn't slept in, a couple of weeks. You can see the bones sticking out on my collarbone. I couldn't eat. I couldn't sleep. I was just terrified. I didn't know what was going to happen with my family. And Joe eventually, even when we moved to Tennessee, we were very hopeful that he would be able to get some help. So this is back in the late 80s, very early 90s. So if you went into treatment, if you went for 28 days, the thought was, well, that's it. You're taken care of. That's 28 days, you're fixed. Well, Joe could go 28 days in between his using. He was a binger. So his using would happen once a month. So 28 days was just kind of a vacation, if you will. I mean, he wasn't going to be using drugs then anyway. So what I've learned also is that substance use has many, many faces. It doesn't present itself the same in every case. So Joe eventually lost his life rights to visitation with my children. And now today it's my daughter who does not have rights to visit her children. It's been 3.5 years since my daughter has seen her children. My granddaughters are 11 and 12. This was just to show, she's a sweet, beautiful, wonderful mother. And substance use is just such a robber of families. So this was, you can see the car crash there. That was my daughter's car right after she had dropped my grandchildren off at school. And somehow Samantha survived this crash, but she was obviously impaired when she was taking the girls to school. And Maddie, the oldest granddaughter, finally broke down and just couldn't take it. She'd been holding all this dysfunction in her. She went to her teacher and told her what was happening at home. Excuse me. And the teacher called Children's Services. And it was since that day that Samantha had any contact or visitation with the girls, which was the right thing to do. Don't get me wrong. It's just a terrible outcome from this disease. So this is what the multi-generational impact of ACEs look like, specifically in my family, but I know that I'm not alone. So let's talk about ACEs. Now, normally when I do this and I'm in person, I like to have everybody quickly look at, this is the actual ACEs test. I don't know how many of you have ever seen it or taken it, but one of the things that I find interesting and why I always like to put the questions up is there are some things that we might not even think about, right? Like, did you have to wear dirty clothes? You know, you might not think, oh, this is such a traumatic, adverse childhood experience, but there's a deeper feeling of not being taken care of. So anyway, if you guys want, you can take a picture of this. I can send this to whoever wants it. Of course, you can find it easily online. But then we add up our numbers, and this all is part of the famous Felitti study. The thing I like to point out is children who have a high ACEs score are 4 times more likely. I mean, just you hear the number 4, that's not that much, but when you see what that number turns out to be, there's 8 million children who are living in families where they are exposed to substance use disorder. And again, I'm preaching to the choir here, I know. So I pulled out some of the, maybe more depressing outcomes that a high ACE score can sort of be indicative of. And the 28% have used illicit drugs, and then 16% consider themselves an alcoholic. But I always like to make this point, and my friend Tabitha, who's on here, knows my son well, and Eric and Carrie as well. My son was exposed to all of these things, but he went on to have an extremely successful life. So I always like to say that we're not our ACEs score. So that's a picture of my son in kindergarten, looking very fierce. And then that was him when he was working in the White House with a very high level position. So a high ACE score does not mean a life sentence of trouble and problems. But this is Dr. Robert Block, and he says ACEs are the single greatest unaddressed public health threat that we are facing. And it's really true when we think about what the long-term negative health outcomes are. So I love this slide where when people say like, oh my God, you have such a great personality. And the truth is, they are a bunch of trauma responses, right? So if we fawn, or if we just go along with everything, people think, well, Trish, she's so easy. We love hanging out with her. But these are all actual mental brain injuries, these traumas and stresses, and they affect these parts of the brain. That's all the technical stuff that you guys know. One of the things I like to talk to folks about when we're learning about this is to be able to identify. There's 6 of the fight, flight, fawn, freeze. There's also faint, which looks a lot like fawn or freeze. But this is just kind of a good list. And when I'm in, I'm sorry, I don't know how that went backwards. When I do the interactive, I like to ask people to share this. So if there's ever a time when you're doing a training, to ask people to identify, even in themselves, we all have trauma responses, whatever it's to. So to just be aware of that when people are demonstrating, like if someone's a fawner, you just think, well, aren't they easy to get along with? But there's maybe something more going on. So I knew that my children were being traumatized by this. I had no idea what to do. And at this slide, I always like to point out, bring back the bangs or what? Okay. Was this like bang centric in the 90s? You got to have like the big bangs. But when I looked for help, wherever I turned, my pastor, the pediatrician, there was no Google machine. People just looked at us differently. That's why I'm so sensitive to if a family is going to be identified by getting a resource, by hearing a story, we have to make it that this is something we would share with everyone. So that's why there's a prevention piece added. But I wanted just to tell you that I am so sensitive to stigma and shame associated with this within a family. So that's in every thread and why I do what I do. So we need to open the lines of communication, name kids' feelings, teach them it's not their fault. And you can see these notes. This is an old piece of paper. When I tried to get the original story called My Daddy Has a Problem published, this is when the big publishing houses in New York said what was a safe or okay thing to talk about, and no publisher would touch this. I got more rejection letters, which only further stigmatized and shamed me into feeling that my family, there was something wrong with us. So, but not talking about this did not make it go away. And you guys all know that firsthand. So this is the last picture that my children have with their father. He died very soon after this from an overdose. I'm sorry, sometimes this thing is trigger happy. So that was in 2009. It was April 25th of 2009. So we're coming up on an anniversary. And I expected, it wasn't a shock when I heard that Joe had died, but you're still never prepared for that. And he and I were long divorced, but my children don't have a father, and I see the ripple effect of this, which I talk about later, even today in my son, who thinks, you know, he would like to have like a dad to bounce things off of. He's a father himself now. So this is the part of the tragedy that we just turn into numbers sometimes, right? And people get sort of shocked. And one of the numbers that I like to say is it's about 135 people a day who are dying. And I used to be a flight attendant, so I know about how many people fit on an airplane. So I think if airplanes were just dropping from the sky every day with this number of souls that were just gone, we as a nation would just be stopping and being like, oh my, what is happening? What do we have to do to fix this? So I wish that there could be this level of urgency for the human loss that we are all experiencing. And then we have this ripple effect, right, of all of the family members affected by this one person. And the economic cost alone should teach us that we need to be doing something, right? Those of you who've seen me talk about this before, this picture down here was taken in Ohio by a police officer with a little boy who was in the back of a car, and that's his grandmother and her boyfriend who had both overdosed. They both were revived, but when I saw that picture and I saw that little guy's face, I already had a book and I had an idea that I wanted to make the character come to life, because all I wanted to do was give that child something to hug, something to hold, something to be of comfort other than a police radio, right, Eric? I mean, to have something that you could do for a kid. So what can we do when we encounter a family or a child? So really, and this is from the CDC, raising awareness of ACEs, changing how people think about it, shifting from the individual or the family to a community solution. That's what these DEC alliances are about, right? Let's bring the community in. We have to reduce the stigma. Someone has to feel safe. Maddie did not feel safe. She knew that her mother was going to be taken away from her. She knew that this was going to be the result. And she was not really prepared to lose her mother until it got to her feeling just completely unsafe and undone. So what if there had been sort of an intermediary, or if Samantha could have said, look, I'm really struggling. Can you give me some help? And then maintaining this thread of the relationship with the child. So the other thing is promoting this safe, stable, safe, trusted adult. Having a child, asking a child, who is your safe, trusted adult and who can they go to, can change lives. So let's listen to the story. We're going to hope this works. We practiced. Let's see.
Hi, my name is Trish Luna, and this is Lambi, and we're going to read Lambi Learns About Addiction, a book about prevention. It's illustrated by Kelly Montana. My name is Lambi, but I am a bunny. Isn't that strange, and isn't that funny? You'd think I'd be a lamb, but I have long ears. You'll see not everything is as it appears. I'll show you more things that are not what you think, like how people can change after too much to drink. Have you heard of addiction? It's hard to say. It's a disease and it hurts families each day. It can hurt a mom, brother, sister, or a dad, but trust me, it's not something they wish they had. When someone is sick with a cold, flu, or cancer, everyone helps to come up with an answer. But addiction is met with shame and with blame. Diseases are not always treated the same. This makes my heart hurt and I feel pain inside. I don't want to see friends, I just want to hide. I worry and wonder, did I cause this mess? It makes me feel sad and I feel lots of stress. Addiction's a problem you can't always see, and that's how it is with my mommy and me. Her addiction is bad, a really big deal. Sometimes she does things that just don't seem real. Things start to change from being happy and calm to feeling unsafe. I don't recognize Mom. Sometimes my fears grow so big in my head, like a giant balloon, all big, bright, and red. When feelings get stuck like they're here to stay, I've learned a cool trick that helps move them away. I let go of the string. You might wonder why. I've learned feelings move fast and I let them fly. Now, this doesn't mean that the problem is gone, but this does help my brain to find peace and feel calm. I also imagine I'm holding my heart. I hold it so close so it won't break apart. I have some good friends who know just how I feel, and safe, trusted people can help me to heal. They tell me Mom's problems are not caused by me. I'm so happy to hear that. Don't you agree? Hearing and learning that I'm not to blame makes me feel better and helps lift my shame. There are other things that I've learned about too, like my body speaks to me, yours speaks to you. I've learned to listen to hear what it says. Sometimes it's my tummy, sometimes it's my head. The pain in my tummy is one way to say, I'm not quite all right, and I'm not quite okay. Sometimes it's my head, like a big block of wood. It says, nothing feels nice, and nothing feels good. When I sit on the ground, it makes me feel still. It might work for you, and I sure hope it will. I take some deep breaths, I breathe in, I breathe out. Feeling rooted and grounded is what it's about. Once I feel grounded, I let my mind go. I see beaches and mountains all covered in snow. Imagining places is fun. You can try it. Remember, it's good to feel calm and find quiet. Hugging my pillow or singing a song makes me feel happy and makes me feel strong. I flap like a bird, twirl my ears all around. Tapping my sides helps my body calm down. Brushing off worries, get them off with a sweep. That helps me let go when my feelings get deep. I go find a friend and play catch with a ball, or just go outside. That's the best thing of all. Being in nature makes my insides feel right. My head feels more calm and my tummy less tight. Now, as I grow up, I'll have choices to make, which road to go down and which path to take. As I think of the future and I look ahead, I think what my safe, trusted people have said. Be careful what choices you make when you choose. The choices decide if you win or you lose. Now, it might look like fun and it might seem real cool when you see some kids breaking rules at your school. But take it from Lambi, it's not a good choice. Just stop and listen to your strong inner voice. That's not a good choice, says the voice in your head. That's not for me. I want good things instead. So join your friend Lambi and say aloud, no. You have good things to do, good places to go. I want to live healthy. I know what drugs do. I'll stay away from them. I hope you do too. Make healthy choices and choose the best thing. Go find some good friends and go run, play, and sing. So now that my story is just about done, I hope you learned something, but also had fun. There's things you can't change and you can't control. To feel grounded and lighter, that is the goal. Move your feelings along, you might feel better. Things you can do alone, some all together. Remember that Lambi will always be here. I'll always listen with my very big ears. I have the same feelings that you have, it's true. I'm sending my love right from Lambi to you. Thanks for listening. To learn more, please visit LambiLearns.com.
Okay, that music was putting me for nap time. I don't know about you guys. So there's the story. And I just want you to know, all of you, that that story is available for you to use anytime, anywhere, any place that a child needs to hear that. Maybe it would be good if it's nap time, just put that story on and have that music going. But that's available through the website. You can email me. It's on YouTube. So that is a completely free resource for anyone to hear the story. And this helps us to start the conversation. That's what this whole thing is about. The whole purpose of this project is to be able to create this safe space for families and children to have the very necessary conversation of the impact of substance use on the family. So we make it safe. We're not going to judge. We're going to acknowledge and label feelings. This is a whole emotional awareness. And then you become aware of where you're going to feel this in your body, because we know if anybody's read the Bessel van der Kolk, The Body Keeps the Score, we know it's all in there and we need to deal with it. And then we're going to learn ways to manage that. But the key piece and the thing that Lambi does for families, because we talk about prevention, every child is going to hear this story just as a educational piece, right? We're just going to learn about what substance abuse looks like, what's happening there, not saying it's happening in your family, but that it's a fact. It's in life and happening, and it's educational. And then we're going to talk about some prevention tools. So now every child gets to hear the story, and those who really need it are the ones who get it too. So Lambi can help us bridge this gap, because sometimes a kid, like we saw that picture of that child, as much as you might want to go up and hug that kid, that child might not be ready for that kind of closeness. So having something to love and touch and have it have a little bit of a separation from human touch can be very helpful. So we're going to name it to tame it. So we tune in and we find that feeling. And Fred Rogers, one of my heroes, this was something that motivated me a long time ago to say, what is mentionable is manageable. So we're going to make it okay to talk about these things. Mindful breathing, we all know that this is an evidence-based practice. It re-regulates the nervous system, and you can get immediate relief. I normally have everybody do a little breathing exercise before I start. When I read with kids, they love it. Just doing a big bunny breath, breathing through your nose, and then a big exhale like you're blowing out a candle. Mindful walking. You can do this just walking around an office, just wherever you are with a child. You can roll your foot from heel to toe, feel more grounded in that. You can see there are all resources of where this is found, or the evidence behind it. Ecotherapy, you can even close your eyes and imagine you're in a green place. Seeing the color green actually increases your the regulation of your nervous system. There's something magic about that color. So all of these wonderful things you get from ecotherapy. Positive imagery reduces the cortisol. This, again, the nature-based imagery is very helpful in getting a more regulated nervous system. Play, normally when I'm live and in person, I will skip around the room at this point. So I'll just do a little, and we're just going to bring skipping back, because as adults, we don't play, but there's something very magic that happens in a brain with the neuro wiring during play in the prefrontal cortex. So I should say all of you should skip to your next meeting just to see what it feels like. A grounding technique. This is very easy to do. The 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. 5 things you can see, 4 things you can touch, 3 things you can hear, smell, and taste. And I make, when I do a gathering, I make little sensory bags that just have, think of anything. You could have a lipstick, a hand lotion, a hand sanitizer. I have little Tic Tacs, something smooth to touch. That's very, very helpful for getting a kid to come right into where they are. Even if it's a difficult situation, it grounds them in their bodies. So now let's talk about the prevention, talking about the risk with a family, with kids who have a family history, how important that is to have awareness, choices, and goal setting. Those are 3 key pieces. This is our little prevention kit. There's a little Lambi with a keychain, some of those grounding tools that we talked about, and then you make a pledge to be true to your heart. And then there's a little wristband that the kid can wear that says, I am true to my heart, which if we're all true to our heart, we're going to make the best choices for ourselves, no matter what that is, even as grown-ups. I always tell kids this too. These are things that we need to learn and use through our whole lives. It doesn't go away, kids, unfortunately, when you grow up. So teaching children to find safe, trusted people, be a safe, trusted person. And then I always like to ask, do you want to be helped, heard, or hugged? And again, this is a good tool to use into adulthood, because a lot of people, you should understand what they need from you at the time. Resourcing is the best prevention, right? So if we can give people some tools to help themselves, this gives them a better floor so that they don't have to drop down so far, right? If there's 4 things that we know we can do to help regulate a child's nervous system, even when they're experiencing really tough things, this is going to help them throughout their life. So besides the book that you just heard, there's a workbook that goes over the 5 core social emotional awareness skills: self-awareness, self-regulation, decision-making, relationship skills, and social awareness. So we probably don't have time for me to read to you all these things, but you can see why each of these pieces are critical for a child's development, specifically kids who are experiencing substance misuse in the home. So I think I only have the top three things: the self-awareness, self-regulation. And I also wanted to tell you, if anybody emails me, I can send you the Lambi Cool Tools cutout sheet right there. That's another free resource that we offer anybody to just have something to give a child, to give them some clues on how they can help calm themselves down. And then decision making, and there's good old Lambi with the be true to your heart wristband. And decision making, you guys, is the next step in what our goals need to be with helping kids with prevention. If we can equip these kids with the best decision making skills, that is going to change the outcome. So many people that I've worked with in this field with drug endangered children, they just keep saying, we need a prevention tool. We need the focus to be on prevention, and we need to go younger and younger, because a lot of these things start in 5th grade. Lambi is equipped to help kids ages 3 to 12. So the younger you start, the higher and better the outcomes. So there's a lot of Lambi love out there, and you'll recognize some people in those photos. That was at the National Debt Conference, and some of you were there. And this is my other Fred Rogers famous or favorite quote is, anyone who does anything to help a child is a hero to me. And that's each and every one of you. I thank you so much for being here. Here's the information slide. And I'm going to pass it back over to Eric.
Thank you, Trish, so much. Your partnership has been amazing. The work that you have done across the United States is amazing, both in state, tribal, and local communities. If you can maybe stop sharing your screen, that'd be great. But I think this is a good opportunity for you to maybe tell them ways to get a hold of that. I know you've got quite a few people on here that have used them. I will tell you, we have alliances all over the United States that are using the Lambi kits. I know in the state of Tennessee, I will pick on Tabitha Curtis. I know Tabitha and all of her local alliances throughout the state are using them. We have encouraged in like Lackawanna County, Pennsylvania are using them, Worcester County, Massachusetts. I think telling people how they can get a hold of them, and I don't know if like Tabitha would be willing to maybe say a couple things, but how that practical use there in her state and her local communities have been beneficial.
Sure.
Yeah.
You want me to talk now, Eric?
Yes, ma'am.
Yeah. So in the state of Tennessee, we are currently using the Lambis. Again, I really appreciate Trish you coming on here and sharing today about the Lambi, and that it's not just a book about addiction, but it's also about prevention. Because, you know, we have to understand that, you know, we have to be able to get these into the hands of children and in the schools. And I think that's imperative that we talk and change the stigma around addiction. But sometimes it takes that prevention piece as well to get it out there, because we know on any given day, the dynamics can change for any child. So we are currently using the Lambis across the state of Tennessee, and excited to have them out there. Not only the books and the bears, but we also have, the books and the bunnies, but we also have the mascots that we're using. And we embed our drug and danger children programs within substance abuse prevention coalitions. Again, having that prevention piece in there for us, I think, is a game changer in making sure that we get these into the hands of all children.
That is awesome. Thank you, Tabitha. And maybe if you can stick on, Tabitha, a little bit, if people have questions and stuff, that'd be great. But Trish, how do we get a hold of these? And I think that'll be very instrumental. I know Kansas is on here in great numbers, and they've got a bunch of grants that have been provided to them in communities and stuff.
Fantastic. So my contact information I can drop into the chat. You can just reach out to me. The kits are $40, and this is what they look like put together. It has the Lambi Learns About Addiction, a book about prevention. It has the book. There's a worksheet, some crayons. This was all designed very specifically for, and Eric again can speak to, law enforcement, and Tabitha has shared so much, or has shared so many stories about how this is used with frontline workers. It gives them a tool. It gives them something to hand to a child and start immediately working on some regulation while they're in this high crisis moment. So the rest of the kit has this adorable Lambi bunny, which has the softest ears. And I can tell you, there have been some, I get covered in goosebumps and I get pretty emotional about it. But I had a person who they were, I think it was Eric and Carrie had asked me to send, I think Eric, right? I think you told me the story. I sent one of these to like one of you guys just as so they could see what it was like. Then it was her niece, I think, whose dad overdosed. And so she gave her niece the set. And the story just said, Lammy's ears are so soft and they're so big. I can tell Lammy all of my problems, and Lammy always listens. So we all know, as in a community, for me anyway, being able to connect to other people that I knew understood exactly how I feel, walking the journey I did with my daughter struggling with substance use. She has been on every horrible thing that there is: meth, heroin, of course, fentanyl is in everything. And I just, for so many years, lived on edge of every time my phone rang, expecting the worst call. But through a community of Al-Anon with other parents of children in the same place, I found my community. I found my place that people understood exactly how I felt. So to have a child feel this sense of community, kids don't have that autonomy to go find, oh, let me go find a little Baby meeting, so we have to bring it to them. We have to give it to them. And there's even an obstacle to them being able to ask, because we don't want to identify a family that's not ready to deal with that, right? So again, as Tabitha said, this prevention tool allows us to bring it to everybody without a specific identifying tool of like, oh, they got this book about addiction. No, we're just sharing about prevention. They just also happen to get these other tools. So then there's a little Lammy heart keychain, and it all comes in this little bag, which again makes it very easy to deliver to kids. Again, frontline workers love this. There is the workbook I hope to have finished by the end of the month, which just really enhances the regulation tools. So I'll just try to type or if Carrie, if you don't mind, to just stick my Trish at LambiLearns.com email in there. I don't have my glasses on and I can't even. So please feel free to reach out. And also, Tabitha has been an incredible resource to other organizations where she shares. She's just somehow magic about the language that has to be written to be able to get the grant funding, to be able to use the resources. So she may be a good person. She's very involved here in this group.
Absolutely. And just to add to what Trish is kind of saying, I think these kits are amazing for any professional. But I will kind of go on what you said, Trish, as a front line. I think it does a couple different things. Number one, it's always a good reminder that we could slow down on that front line and take a few minutes for the child. You have the kits available. What we have heard, what I've seen, and through the practice of my career, is it reminds us. It's that reminder to slow down, take some time, focus on the child, talk to the children, and sit there. And I will tell you, I know for a fact, law enforcement, using that as an example from my profession, we'll take the time and read the book, or if nothing else, we'll play with the stuffed rabbit or whatever. And what we're doing is we're engaging with them, right? And we know the studies that show that have went back a long ways through the Tetris study and things like that, that if you give a child something to do within so many minutes of that traumatic incident, it will reduce that trauma, right? It re-engages that brain and it starts reducing the trauma to these children. So we see them in law enforcement, we see them in fire and EMS, we see them with probation parole, we see them with every discipline to be able to engage with these children and to provide them that. So it's been an effective tool, and it's been great. And like I said earlier, Trish isn't always only a great friend of ours, but we have partnered. And we support what Trish brings and what Lambi Learns brings to our DEC alliances and our DEC mission across the United States. So I think now, Trish, would be a good time. If any of you have any questions, Carrie, I assume you're kind of monitoring the chat. Is there any questions in there for Trish or Tabitha or others? And if not, feel free, you can come off mute and you can ask Trish direct your questions. We'll give that a few minutes and then we'll turn it back over to Jennifer and Mike, who have, like I said, with Shawnee County, who have supported this brown bag series.
So the one question was about how to purchase the books. I did put your website in, Trish, but you might want to share.
Oh, okay.
about that.
So I don't know that I said, Carrie, thank you. So did I say the sets are $40 for nonprofits? And the workbook, when it comes out, I think it'll be like $10. And then we have the little prevention sets are $7. It's this little, and also, I don't know if you're serving communities that are Spanish speaking, but I have the Spanish version ready to go. I just need a large enough order that I can't just do like 100 copies or whatever. So if people want to come together and say they need, you know, a large Spanish speaking version, it is translated into Spanish. So everybody, let's get together and get a big order so we can get it to our Spanish speaking friends. And then I do trainings that it can be a full day, a half day, but all that information, you can just reach out to me through my email and we can talk about it. And I have to say, when I met Tabitha, I want to say it was 6 years ago, Tabitha. She was at a
I think
conference.
so, yeah.
Yeah, I think it was. And she was at a conference sharing about DEC. And I just thought, this is 100% alignment in what I do, who I want to reach, drug endangered children, my gosh. So this has been a godsend. I feel like it was totally a God moment when we met, and it has just brought forth this incredible partnership. And I could not believe any more in their mission than I do. And I feel it's just a perfect companion partnership where I support 100% the efforts and their mission, and my mission completely aligns with National DEC and our local DEC. I mean, it's what we're doing, right? We want to reach these kids. So it's been a wonderful partnership for me.
So Trish, we did see come in, or I did, and Carrie, maybe there's more. Do you have any data or outcomes that you have collected at this point, or maybe Tabitha could help answer that too? I don't know.
So one of the things that I have been trying to do, so anybody, the data person was at Sarah, trying to get, so this program incorporates evidence-based trauma-informed age-appropriate practices that have been researched and studied as useful tools to use on children, right? So we know that all of the practices are evidence-based. I didn't just come up with like, hey, let's stand on our head or let's go do a cartwheel. These are all proven, although the skipping part, I will say, I added. You can do any other physical activity such as play, but all of those parts are evidence-based practices. What I'd love to do is they've never been incorporated into a child's book to have it be delivered. So we're in the process of trying to do that, of getting just a quick pre and post, and that's going to be in the workbook. There'll be a QR code. And so, you know, trying to go through a clearinghouse, they always want a control group. I don't know if anybody's done research before. Tabitha and I have talked about doing this where she can work within her coalitions, take a group of 10 kids, put them through the Lambi training, the Lambi Academy, and then have the 10 who don't, and then put them through it. Because it's very hard to say, well, you guys don't get you don't get to have the experience. So it has been in the works for a long time. I worked with Vanderbilt University and then Marshall University in West Virginia. And when I was on a call one time, I want to say there was like 6 or 8 PhD people, and we got so bogged down in the question of like what is like even trying to get the evidentiary questions, the validated question, what are we proving? It's such a complicated process. So just know that the tools are evidence-based, trauma-informed, not thought up by me. They are just incorporated into this story by me, but evidenced, researched, validated by, and I have all the citations. It's Bezel Vanderkoop, Peter Levine, Pat Ogden, Dan Siegel, all of those experts in the mind-body field for those outcomes, and the research about where the brain is impacted. Again, that is not my research, but that's research that has been done, and that's why this is in here. So, but we hope to one day. I mean, that's a goal, right, Tabitha?
Yeah, I was going to raise my hand and say, because of the way that we utilize this tool in the state of Tennessee, we are distributing them out with law enforcement, first responders. It's not actually like given in a controlled setting and without having that focus group like Trish was talking about. These are boots on the ground people working, trying to get this in the hands of children during that basic time of trauma that's impacting their life at that time. So without having a controlled group to be able to collect that data, it's almost impossible. I can tell you that we have given or have the opportunity of giving out thousands of these throughout our state, but without having, again, that opportunity to just have these kids in a controlled setting, it's really more our plan is to give them out to the kids at the time when they're experiencing the trauma, when this is happening within their lives.
Well said.
Yeah.
And I think some of the best data that we have heard back, and I know it's not data, is the positive stories that we're hearing back that the children are expressing to their family members, to the professionals and the community members. So well done, Trish. I think for the sake of time, is there any other questions in there, Carrie? All right, with that being said, unless we have any more, Jennifer, I'm going to throw it back to you because we got a great panel coming up next week. Is that correct?
That is correct. And just thank you so much, Trish, for that wonderful presentation and the great information. But yes, next week's Brown Bag will be a panel from parents with lived experience in recovery. So we have 2 moms and a dad who are going to share their experiences being parents who were using substances and kind of what help they received and how they got to their recovery and the points and the positive places they're at now. So they're each going to share their story, and then we will have time for questions afterwards or comments from anyone wanting to seek guidance from parents who have lived it and gone through it.
All right. So with that being said, thank all of you. I hope you have a wonderful rest of your week, and hopefully we will see you next week for the wonderful panel discussion. And again, thank you, Shawnee County DEC Alliance, for your support on this Brown Bag series. So everybody have a wonderful day, and we will catch you next week.